Also playing Blue White Control, we are in the mirror here, so hope we don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, as both players are making their land drops to begin right now. A lot of different versions of Blue White are out there right now. The one that jumps to my head, of course, is Adrian Sullivan making the top 4 at Grand Prix Chicago, playing his take on Blue White. But the big question here, Patrick, of course, always is elixir or no elixir?
Yeah, I mean, Joe is definitely going the no elixir route with Aetherwing, 2 Elspeths, and no shortage of victory conditions. The most interesting element, I guess, of Joe Lossett's deck is his mana base has a fair bit of black mana, Godless Shrines, in addition to a lot of temples. I mean, the temples, no surprise, a lot of people love playing the off-color temples anyway in Control, but the Godless Shrine kind of hints at black spot removal on the sideboard that just isn't there. Actually, the only black cards in the sideboard are the Night Veil Specters. The Godless Shrine is just making it a little bit easier to board in another avenue of attack.
Speaking of Night Veil Specter, you do see one on the table, gonna die to a Banishing Light. A little counter where there, Syncopate gets taken down by Dispel. We'll update you guys on the board position here very quickly. Lossett with 6 lands in play. Let's make it 7 after he plays this Temple of Silence. Gonna scry Jace, maybe to the top, maybe to the bottom. We'll find out. 2 Mutavaults among his lands. Nguyen, it looks like, has 4 or 5 lands in play on his side of the table. Does look to be 5, so a little bit behind on the land advantage. And we know from watching these matches, missing lands in this matchup is never a good thing, as here's another Night Veil Specter.
Yeah, I mean, and Lossett has already gotten a Sphinx's Revelation off. From the looks of it, he's both a land ahead and a card ahead with a threat on the board. So he's definitely keeping the pressure up on Nguyen. But Jace, Architect of Thought, not the worst here, particularly if he has an Azorius Charm or a Celestial Flare to follow up on to combat the Night Veil Specter.
Nguyen going to deploy the Jace, tick it up and pass the turn back, make those Mutavaults and the Specters a little bit weaker. You saw Joe pick up a copy of Jace that he left on top of his deck last turn. Looks like he does have the cards, a few more cards right now than Nguyen does. And if you've been following Joe in the Open Series over the past couple of months, seeing these Specters in play after sideboard, not really much of a surprise. He's been playing these in the sideboard of Blue White for some time now. Taking a look at his sideboard here, as far as changes for last weekend, excuse me, they're very, very minor. He has 1 less Blind Obedience down from 3 to 2, but 1 more Archangel of Thune from 3 up to 4. So these are the minor changes he's been making with this deck, and he's been having a lot of success with Blue White Control, making top 8 last weekend in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, it is clear that Joe Lossett has a bullseye, is targeting red aggro. With 4 Night Veil Specters, 4 Archangel of Thunes, and 2 Blind Obediences, he has a very strong anti-red package compared to most Control players.
I think as you should this weekend. I believe that is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Night Veil Specter, obviously Archangel of Thune and Blind Obedience are absolutely fantastic against red, but Night Veil Specter, underrated anti-red card. They just don't have as much burn as they used to, and so many of their creatures are just a little bit smaller.
Negate takes down James's own Divination. Of course, the Divination was found by Joe's Night Veil Specter, so that's always a humbling feeling, having to counter your own spell that Night Veil Specter gave away.
Yeah, it's tough once you get under the Specter, because he was already behind on a couple metrics, so now having to use his resources to beat his own cards, definitely a tough spot to be in. At least he has Jace going for him.
Yeah, gonna take Jace up and just pass the turn back yet again. Feels like there's a Revelation here at the ready, or at least a counter spell. Lossett, looks like he may want to cycle an Azorius Charm here for a brand new card on the end of turn. Definitely weighing his options, as again, he does have 6 cards in his hand right now. Spectre going to work along with Mutavaults, but he's gonna wait for a better spot, or maybe a better use with the Charm. Picks up a copy of Detention Sphere. Another card that has been coming and going and coming and going in Blue-White decks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of enchantment removal people play nowadays, whether it's Abrupt Decay, DSI, Golgari Charm, Banishing Light, it's left a lot of people uneasy about playing too many Detention Sphere, or investing too heavily in Detention Sphere.
Temple of Mystery does come off from the Night Veil Specter. That'll be Lossett's land for the turn, so he is scrying. The card he's looking at is a Negate right now, and he will leave Negate on top of the deck. See if Joe has anything else he does want to do on this turn. He's got a pretty nice advantage right now, only attacking for 1 point at a time due to Jace, but the card advantage is really beginning to build up.
Yeah, absolutely. The Night Veil Specter is building an advantage every turn, and until Nguyen can actually get out from under it, The problem here, though, is that Joe now has an advantage. He can keep riding, whereas Nguyen's Jace isn't actually making any forward progress at the moment.
Lossett let that one resolve pretty quickly. It was just a rev for 3. Feels like, he's kind of saying to himself, that's not really that big of a deal right now. As you see Nguyen pick up a couple counter spells, dispel off the revelation, and negate for the turn. Gonna start by playing a Mutavault. That'll be land number 7 out there for James. You see the Elspeth in his hand right now. Not playing a huge role in the game. Hasn't activated Jace just yet. So looks like he's starting to spread the mana out, figure out how many things he can do a turn and what's important and what's not.
Yeah, it's interesting, Lossett choosing to not counter the revelation, wanting to save his permission for some tempo plays on Nguyen's turn. The problem, of course, being that now Nguyen can actually fight back.
I think we're about to see a fight here. You see Lossett starting to organize the mana a little bit. This feels like a dissolve, and it is, targeting the detention sphere. Nguyen going to look at his hand. Again, there's a dispel and a negate over there. Going to use dispel to attempt to take care of the dissolve. It looks like that's going to work. So now the sphere is going to come into play and take care of the Spectre.
Wow, that's tough. With the Azorius Charm in his hand, negate on top of his deck, obviously, if he wanted to make that play, he could have tapped differently, but I think he's actually trying to hide that information. He doesn't want to reveal that he has access to negate.
And he might be okay just losing that battle too, right? I mean, Nightfell Spectre, you could argue, it's gotten a couple cards. Maybe it's done enough and we can move forward here, but he is behind on the Jace advantage right now.
Yeah, I mean, Nguyen has successfully turned things around here. The revelation was exactly what he needed to start snowballing.
It looks like Lossett wants to take care of this Jace, so maybe we'll have a fight over this card. And I guess the answer is no. So both players just holding on to permission right now.
Yeah, both players not wanting to fight fights that they might actually lose.
Nguyen draws a detention sphere of his own. And just simply looks like passes the turn back. So Lossett may finally cycle that Azorius Charm, and he will. So new card coming here for Joe. We'll make it 2 in just a moment after his draw for the turn. You see him pick up one of those white bordered islands.
Ugh.
He's been playing with them forever. Hey, I'm right there with you, man. I am right there with you. But hey, it's good for coverage. We know there's a land in his hand. It's good for coverage.
If Garfield had intended us to play with white bordered basic land, he wouldn't have made Alpha black bordered.
You make a very compelling argument. As here is a deicide. Going to be targeting, looks like detention sphere so he can get his Jace back. And there's a dispel. So Nguyen loses that fight, quickly untaps. Syncopate the draw here for James. You see the clock in the middle there. We're working our way underneath 10 minutes. And then, it's a blue-white control mirror. Neither deck can win too quickly. The first game, of course, took a while. Lossett was able to win that one. You take a look at Nguyen's deck list. He doesn't have a lot of great ways to win. He does have 2 Elspeths and an Aetherling in his deck. He also has an Elixir as well if he wants to try to go long, but going long here is not really much of an option if he wants to try to actually win the match.
Yeah, I don't know how much more time we have for long, but Nguyen's going to have to try to figure out how to put himself in a spot to present some aggression just to go for a tie.
Jace going to be placed on the stack here. Lossett will consult his hand. You see Joe does have a Sphinx's Revelation in his hand. Looks like he may have another counter spell as well. So he does go reaching for maybe that negate he's had for a while, and that will take care of the Jace. What I find really interesting about this is Nguyen has had no interest in attempting to fight back. Like not cast my spell counter, okay, that's fine. No thinking about, oh, maybe I'll counter back and give him information. He just lets it go right away. We'll see a rev here going to be for 4. We'll see if he wants to sync for 1, and he will.
I was going to say, do these people counter nothing?
Yeah, yeah. What is counterable for these blue-white control players?
Wow. But they syncopate, exiling Joe Lossett's big move that he was trying to make.
Joe picked up a good draw for the turn, picked up a copy of Jace. Also has another revelation here. Could actually take the opportunity while wind shields are down, only a Temple of Silence available, to resolve a big rev. Sure, he'll have to discard some cards, but could sculpt a very nice 7 cards before passing the turn back to Nguyen if he'd like to.
Oh yeah. I would rev so hard. Nguyen would have to find me.
Looks like Joe's going to begin with Jace, however.
Yeah, and he still can rev for 3, or he can just keep counter magic up.
He's just going to take Jace up to 5 before passing the turn back over to Nguyen. Nguyen will untap all of these lands, all 7 of them, and take a draw here. So a copy of, looks like Fated Retribution is what he found.
It's a little bit of a wild card.
I didn't expect to see that. He does have 1 in his main deck, but I expected to see that actually get sideboarded out. Wild card is a good way to put it, as Jace is going to take on down, show us a Nightveil Spectre, Dissolve, and an Island. And you see the split there, Counterspell versus.
I think Nguyen is hoping that Lossett will take that Island and then Nightveil Spectre, cast the Nightveil Spectre, and have the Fated Retribution be that much juicier.
Well, there's an Island. We could also see maybe a Mutavaults get thrown into this too. This could get interesting.
I mean, Lossett is getting to a spot of having just such an enormous mana advantage.
There's your Nightveil Spectre. That's a passing of the turn. Nguyen. You see him pull a Rev forward, so he's going to go for a Rev for 4. Lossett has a Dispel in his hand at the ready. I think there's also Dissolve hanging out there too, potentially. But Dispel will take care of the Revelation. And now Nguyen's going to say, let me see that graveyard. How many counterspells do you have left, potentially? So Nguyen going to untap these 7 lands after consulting Joe's graveyard. We'll take a draw. Again, we know that James does have an Elspeth in his hand. Drew a Plains for the turn. There's also a D-Sphere over there.
Yeah, and Fated Retribution and Sphinx's Revelation. He's got a lot of powerful options. The problem, of course, being that he's bottlenecked on mana.
Yeah. Retribution, pretty powerful card, but expensive at 7. This will give him land number 8. I wonder if he's going to pull the trigger on this right now. Maybe try to pick a better spot and get more value, because right now he's so far behind that he might have to just try to pick a better spot here with Retribution.
Yeah, I think he wants to try to sculpt things to a spot where when he has 1 more mana, he can Retribution and protect it with Negate, because Retribution has the potential to undo most of Joe's different types of advantages, and at the same time give himself a Jace by getting rid of the Detention Sphere.
6 mana. All right, so here's Elspeth.
Yeah, he doesn't have an answer to the Detention Sphere just yet, unfortunately.
It looks
like he had a Deicide, but it looked like he had already used that.
So now here's a Dissolve on Elspeth, and this may have been on purpose by Nguyen, as having this be the test spell.
Yeah.
That buys out the counterspell, assuming that he thinks that Joe will counter Elspeth, which he of course did do. Now don't get me wrong, Joe is still ahead in this situation. He's got a Spectre that's coming into the red zone and attacking. He has got an active Jace. Mutavault he could fire up as well, but there may be a bigger plan in the works here for Nguyen.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't want to have anything in play that's going to get destroyed by Fated Retribution.
Jace going to take down now. There's an Elspeth. This is a Plains, and that is a Temple of Enlightenment. Elspeth on its own very quickly, and that's what Lossett will take. Doesn't need any more lands, so those are going to go to the bottom. Let's see if he deploys Elspeth. I think right now the situation here for Lossett is, do I want to deploy Elspeth, or do I want to leave up a wall of mana that allows me to rev? And it looks like he's going to leave up a wall of mana, as Nguyen will draw a card. Looks like it was another copy of Detention Sphere, and he's going to cast that.
Detention Sphere, definitely a lot of juicy targets at the moment. It's interesting, the kind of tension between Detention Sphere and Banishing Light. You know, Detention Sphere obviously can't hit a Detention Sphere, so Banishing Light having the special ability of actually being able to hit one.
Yep.
So, I mean, Detention Sphere generally just more powerful because of its ability to sweep multiples up, but I always enjoy every so often when the format gets to a spot where people are actually playing a mix, you know?
3 spheres, 2 lights, something like that.
Yeah.
Looks like Joe's going to go tap in some mana here. This is, of course, going to be a Sphinx's Revelation. He's leaving 4 mana available to kind of bluff a counterspell in this situation. Negate is going to target that very, very quickly. So Joe's now going to draw a card. Again, he's got a Jace over there, picked up a Jace for the turn. He'll start by taking the Jace that's in play up. And we know he has Elspeth in hand right now as well. That's the information that James also has, along with those 2 Mutavaults in play. So again, we could see Nguyen here really try to set up a pretty nice Fated Retribution, and maybe cast it with no fear of counterspells, as there is Elspeth. So the Sun Champion's going to come in. It'll tick up. 3 soldier tokens are coming. And then there will be a passing of the turn here in just a moment.
This is potentially a really big turn for Nguyen. So Nguyen no longer looking for an untapped land. Doesn't even have the permission to try to protect his retribution anyway.
The card here was dissolve.
Is Nguyen going to try to hold out? He still has a ton of life to work with. It's not like he's actually under that much pressure beyond the growing card advantage and resource advantage just in different areas. Looks like he does want to.
The problem here is what's in the middle that's ticking down, which is now 241, 240, 239. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
Down a game, looking for. I mean, even though we're having this little battle over these cards, is Joe's going to turn over a couple of cards here. There's a Rev, a Deicide, and a Detention Sphere. So actually a really nice -2 there from Jace.
That's real tough.
It's about trying to actually win the game and closing it out. And Nguyen needs to find Aetherling like within the next 2 turns, I think, at max.
That's what I like about Faded Retribution. Get that scry for 2.
Yeah, I mean, it'll work.
Scry for 2.
It'll work right now. There's your split. Rev is on its own.
Now, do we know if they have any time extension at all?
I do not believe that is the case. I believe our clock is accurate. We will, of course, check.
I always enjoy when a blue-white mirror match doesn't have a time extension.
It's a welcome change.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Rev going to go to the bottom. 2 cards going to go to the grip. So D-Sphere and Deicide going to go to hand. And I think part of the reason we actually see that right now is because for Joe, because he's ahead, there's about 2 minutes left. He doesn't know exactly how much time left there is, but answers are probably better right now just to make sure he doesn't lose, right?
Yeah, he just wants to make sure he doesn't lose any time in the next 5 minutes, A
lot of the times your opponent is who you're trying to beat, but sometimes you can use the clock in your favor. And when you're in a blue-white mirror like this, and this probably isn't the first time Joe's been here, you might as well, use this to your advantage. Just here's Celestial Flare to take care of Mutavault.
Yeah, I mean, that's sometimes I ask myself, what would Chris Benefell do?
Okay.
And I think that's what Chris Benefell would do.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Just defend. Be very, very careful and make sure to use every advantage at his disposal.
Here is a Jace that's going to get dissolved, or at least an attempt at it. That will resolve. So there goes Jace. A scry here for Nguyen, as we are underneath 1 minute left to go in the match. Last card he's looking at is just that copy of Faded Retribution. Given enough time, you might be able to set him up with that, but I don't think there's enough time to do that. As here's a D-Sphere. And that's going to take down probably the Banishing Light that's over there. So Spectre comes back.
That is the tough thing, is that while Banishing Light can hit Detention Sphere, Detention Sphere can hit Banishing Light.
Yep. Nguyen drew his card for the turn. Of course, the top card is a mystery, as he scribed the top card to the bottom from Dissolve very, very quickly. Now here is the big Faded Retribution. That's going to look at his hand. No answer, so that's going to take care of everything. And Nguyen fails to scry.
I think he just knows that it's a lost cause. He heard the time announcement.
Sure.
And he's not exactly presenting 18 damage in the next 3 turns. I don't know, if you draw Aetherling next turn, God, you're still 1 turn behind?
Yeah, I think you're still 1 turn short. You see Lossett's going to fire off a Deicide on a Detention Sphere to get his Elspeth back on Nguyen's end step. 3 soldier tokens incoming.
I love Elspeth.
Did you guys do a good job together?
I love Elspeth.
Yeah?
That's the one thing. I don't play these blue-white decks, but I got respect for both Jace and Elspeth as individuals. I got a lot of respect for their work. I'm a firm believer in it.
They work well together.
Yeah.
You must admit.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what Jace what Jace is into these days. This whole Living Guild Pact era is a little bit of an unusual, different direction. But I figure dudes are into vacation. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
He deserves to kind of have a little bit of an experimental phase for a little while. Instead of remembering his roots of, draw a card. Draw a card. That's what you do. You draw a card.
Sometimes you draw 20, sometimes you draw 10, sometimes you draw 3 and then put 2 back.
Absolutely,
Now he's not even doing any of that. No interest this go around.
Now he draws 7.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're right.
I think he's going to draw 7 more often than people realize.
I think you might be right about that.
The new Jace, a lot of his power is tied up in that ultimate, which is at once very, very powerful and very easy to get to.
See, player's going to be finishing up extra turns here in just a moment. We're on turn number 4 as Nguyen does Detention Sphere away those soldier tokens. Losett will be turn number 5. He will take a draw here. He can fire up a couple copies of Mutavault, get Nguyen down to what looks to be 2 life. 2 is, of course, not 0, and Nguyen may have some sort of removal spell or a blocker with Mutavaults, but what's going to end up being the final result, my friends, is Joe Lossett is going to win this match 1-0.
Pack up their cards.
And he will be off to a nice start this weekend in Portland, getting the win over James Nguyen.
So I think it was actually 2-0, wasn't it? I mean, he had Nguyen down to 6 with 2 Mutavaults and 3 Elspeth tokens.
Yeah, okay, James just concedes. Yeah, he doesn't have enough time to actually get all the rest of the damage through, but James is like, okay, I'm dead. You win 2-0 instead of 1-0-1. So either way, Lossett's going to end up out of this match the victor. And so he's going to start today at 1-0 on his quest to expand his lead here in Season 3 from Portland, as we will head back to the booth as we have a lot of sweet things to talk about.